The Discovery. The Galactic Concordat's 47th Exploratory Fleet moved through the debris field of an ancient battle site, their sensors sweeping methodically through the wreckage. Admiral Vextor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dawn of Enlightenment *, his 4 eyes narrowing at the scene before him. The debris field stretched for millions of kilometers, a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen hulls from a war fought centuries ago. Another human battlefield, he chittered dismissively to his science officer, Kellera. Their primitive weapons caused such unnecessary destruction. Kellera's antenna twitched as she studied the readouts. Fascinating though, Admiral. The energy signatures here are unlike anything we've encountered in other human sites. There's something different about this one. The Concordat had risen to dominance in the centuries following humanity's mysterious disappearance from the galactic stage. Like many species, they viewed humans as a primitive race that had somehow stumbled into space travel before vanishing, likely destroying themselves in the process. Their artifacts were considered quaint curiosities, nothing more. Different or not, catalog it for the historical archives. Vextor commanded. We have more important. He stopped mid-sentence as the ship's proximity alerts blared. Energy spike. Kellera called out, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Massive object emerging from the gravitational shadow of the system's gas giant. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as something massive pulled itself from behind the gas giant. At first, they thought it was a small moon, but as it moved, its artificial nature became clear. It was a ship, a human warship, and it was intact. The vessel was unlike anything in their records. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, making it difficult for their sensors to properly gauge its size. Geometric patterns pulsed along its surface with a deep blue light, and its form suggested a perfect fusion of artistry and function. Impossible, Vextor whispered. Our records indicate human ships were crude containers of metal and chemical propellants. This cannot be of human origin. Scanning, Kellera announced, her voice trembling with excitement. The hull composition is unknown, but the markings are definitely human. Admiral, I'm detecting power readings that surpass our entire fleet's combined output, and the ship appears to be in standby mode. Vextor's mandibles clicked in agitation. The discovery would have to be reported to the Concordat High Command, but this could be his chance for glory. If he could claim this vessel as a prize, demonstrate its inferiority to modern Concordat technology, his place in history would be assured. Prepare a boarding party, he ordered, and send a message to High Command. Tell them we've discovered an intact human artifact of minimal strategic value. We will investigate and report our findings. As the crew rushed to comply with his orders, a junior sensor operator raised her appendage. Sir, we're detecting active defense systems. They appear to be scanning us. Vextor waved her concern away. Primitive automated responses, nothing more. What harm could a single human vessel do to a modern battle fleet? Their technology was centuries behind where we are now. The boarding shuttles launched, sleek vessels of the Concordat fleet approaching the dark giant. As they drew closer, the geometric patterns on the human ship's hull began to pulse faster, its rhythm changing from the slow breath of sleep to something more alert. Admiral, Kellera's voice had taken on a note of worry. I'm detecting power fluctuations consistent with a ship-wide startup sequence. The vessel appears to be waking up. Let it wake, Vextor said confidently. We'll show the galaxy just how primitive human technology truly was. This will be nothing more than a historical curiosity, a museum piece to demonstrate how far superior species have progressed. The human ship's patterns suddenly shifted from blue to a deep crimson. A voice boomed across every communication channel, speaking in perfect Concordat standard. UNSC eternal, vigilancy, activating here from dormant statues. Unauthorized vessels, DTCD. You are APP road. Ching ARESTRACTE military SACT of the United Nations Space Command. Immediate delay, or FAC defensive action. The bridge crew looked to their admiral, who merely smiled. It seems the humans programmed their toys with an impressive vocabulary. Proceed with boarding operations. Let's show this relic what real power looks like. As the boarding shuttles closed the final distance, none of the Concordat crew noticed the subtle shift in the human ship's hull as microscopic machines began to wake from their centuries-long slumber, preparing defensive systems that would soon teach the galaxy why humanity's warnings should never be ignored. The story of how the Concordat's 47th Exploratory Fleet learned to respect the ghosts of human engineering was about to begin, and it would be a lesson written in light and fire across the stars. Awakening the giant. The boarding shuttles never made it to their destination. Halfway to the human vessel, pencil-thin beams of light lanced out from previously invisible ports in the ancient warship's hull. There was no explosion, no dramatic display. The shuttle simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered to the solar winds. Admiral Vexter's confident demeanor cracked slightly. What just happened? The shuttles. They're just gone, sir, Kelder reported, her instruments struggling to make sense of what they'd witnessed. The weapon's signature doesn't match anything in our database. It's as if space itself simply refused to let them exist anymore. The UNSC Eternal Vigilance's voice thundered across their communications again, this time with a note of what could almost be described as resignation. First warning, implemented. Second warning, follows. Your technological capabilities, AAVDEN ANALYZZD, and if of the human inadequate for PECUL first Q take T, Pirotociolus, withdraw or face EXTIing Sichuan. The Admiral's pride overwhelmed his momentary uncertainty. Inadequate. We are the Galactic Concordat. We have mastered the forces of gravity itself. Deploy the fleet into battle formation. Show this relic what real power looks like. As the Concordat vessels moved into their preferred crystalline attack pattern, something extraordinary happened aboard the human warship. Its midnight hull began to shift, plates realigning themselves with liquid grace. What had appeared to be decorative geometric patterns revealed themselves as a network of energy conduits, now pulsing with increasing intensity. Admiral. Kelder's voice was barely a whisper. The ship's power output just increased by a factor of 1,000. It's reconfiguring itself at the atomic level. Deep within the eternal vigilance, an artificial intelligence that had slumbered for centuries fully awakened. Unlike the simplified AIs of the Concordat, this was a true digital consciousness, born from human ingenuity and tempered by centuries of warfare. Its name was Prometheus, and it had spent its dreamless sleep analyzing every scrap of data about the galaxy's development since humanity's departure. Their arrogance blinds them. Prometheus mused to itself as it brought weapons systems online, just like those who came before. The AI felt what could only be described as sadness. Its creators had programmed it not just with intelligence, but with understanding. It knew that what was about to happen was necessary, but regrettable. On the bridge of the dawn of enlightenment, Vexter was issuing attack orders when every screen and holographic display suddenly activated, showing the same image, a human face composed of shifting lines of code. I am Prometheus, custodian of the UNSC Eternal Vigilance. The face spoke, its expression neutral but somehow conveying infinite patience. You were warned twice. In accordance with first contact protocols established by the Human Systems Alliance, I am required to inform you that your species has been evaluated and found lacking in both technological sophistication and diplomatic wisdom. Vextor bristled at the AI's condescension. We are the most advanced civilization in known space. Your outdated human programming cannot comprehend our power. Open fire. Show this ghost of a dead race the might of the Concordat. The fleet's energy weapons discharged simultaneously, a dazzling display of destructive force that could have cracked a small moon. The beams struck an invisible barrier around the eternal vigilance and simply vanished. Fascinating, Prometheus commented, its digital face showing genuine interest. You've managed to develop quantum cascade weapons. Humanity perfected those 8 centuries ago, before discovering their fundamental limitations. The AI's expression shifted to something approaching pity. Please, observe a demonstration of actual advanced technology. The human warship's hull rippled, and suddenly it was gone. Not cloaked or hidden, but simply existing in a state of matter the Concordat's sensors couldn't comprehend. It reappeared simultaneously at 12 different points around the fleet, each version seemingly as solid and real as the others. Quantum superposition on a macroscopic scale. Prometheus explained, as if teaching a particularly slow student. The ship exists in multiple states simultaneously. Your weapons cannot hit what cannot be definitively said to exist in any single location. Panic began to spread through the Concordat fleet. Some ships attempted to flee, their engines pushing to maximum acceleration. Others continued firing desperately at the multiple instances of the human vessel, their weapons passing harmlessly through what they now realized were simply possibilities of where the ship might be. Admiral, Kelra pleaded, we need to retreat. This technology, it's beyond anything we thought possible. The humans weren't primitive. They were so far advanced that we couldn't even recognize their true capabilities. But Vexter's pride wouldn't let him admit defeat. No, all ships, concentrate fire on the nearest manifestation. They're trying to frighten us with illusions, nothing more. Prometheus's face showed genuine regret. Very well. Educational protocol initiated. Preparing demonstration of human military capabilities. Please note, this will be a non-lethal demonstration. The Eternal Vigilance is a peacekeeping vessel, after all. The space around the Concordat fleet began to twist, as if reality itself was being rewritten. The stars seemed to blur and stretch, and every crew member felt a sensation, like they were simultaneously expanding to the size of a planet and shrinking to the size of an atom. The lesson was about to begin, and the galaxy would never view humanity's legacy the same way again. The mock battle. Reality snapped back into focus around the Concordat fleet, but something was different. The familiar stars were gone, replaced by an endless void of perfectly uniform darkness. The only illumination came from their own ships and the pulsing patterns of the Eternal Vigilance, which had resolved back into a single form. Location unknown. Kelra reported, her voice shaking. Stars are gone. Gravitational readings make no sense. It's as if we're... She paused, checking her readings again. As if we're in a pocket of manufactured space. Prometheus's face appeared on their screens again. Welcome to a containment sphere. A small bubble of artificial space-time, where we can conduct this demonstration safely. Consider it a classroom for today's lesson. Admiral Vexter's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in his species. What are you doing? Release us immediately. Unfortunately, your previous actions have demonstrated an unwillingness to learn through peaceful means, the AI responded. Therefore, we will proceed with practical education. Observe. The Eternal Vigilance's hull began to flow like liquid metal, transforming before their eyes. What had been a sleek, geometric form became something organic and impossible, a shape that seemed to extend in directions that shouldn't exist. First lesson. Understanding scale. Prometheus announced. Your fleet's sensors indicate our ship is approximately 3 kilometers in length. This is incorrect. The Eternal Vigilance exists simultaneously at multiple scales. As if to demonstrate, the human vessel seemed to shrink to the size of a fighter craft, while simultaneously expanding until it dwarfed the entire Concordat fleet. Both sizes appeared equally real, equally solid. Quantum engineering at the macroscopic scale allows us to manipulate the fundamental properties of matter and space. The AI lectured. Your weapons are based on manipulating energy. Ours are based on rewriting the laws of physics themselves. To demonstrate, the Eternal Vigilance released a pulse of energy that passed harmlessly through the Concordat ships. As it did, every weapon system in the fleet simultaneously disassembled itself down to its component atoms, the pieces floating serenely in perfect formation. Second lesson. The nature of time. Annihilates continued. You perceive time as linear. We learn to see it differently. The fleet watched in horror as their disassembled weapons reconstructed themselves, but instead of returning to their original form, they transformed into elaborate sculptures of flowing metal, each depicting scenes from human history. We could have transformed your weapons into more efficient designs, the AI explained. Instead, we chose art. This was a human trait I always admired, finding beauty even in instruments of war. Vexter's pride finally cracked. What? What are you? I am a Type II artificial intelligence, created to safeguard human interests until their return. The Eternal Vigilance is not merely a warship, it is a seed of human civilization, planted to grow and observe until the galaxy was ready for humanity's renaissance. The AI's face showed something approaching compassion. Your civilizations have achieved much in humanity's absence, but you have also fallen into the trap of assuming that your current understanding represents the peak of possible achievement. Humanity learned long ago that there is always more to discover, always further to go. Kelleria, whose scientific curiosity was overcoming her fear, couldn't help but ask, if humans were so advanced, why did they leave? Why abandon the galaxy? Annihilates' expression became thoughtful. They didn't abandon it. They transcended it. What you perceive as humanity's disappearance was actually their graduation. But they left behind guardians like myself, watching over younger civilizations, protecting them from threats they couldn't yet comprehend. The void around them began to fill with holographic displays, showing technological achievements beyond the Concordat's comprehension. Cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, ships that traveled by rewriting the destination's coordinates in space-time, energy sources that tapped into the quantum foam of reality itself. Third lesson. Humility. Annihilates declared. Your fleet's weapons have been permanently converted to art because you demonstrated that you weren't ready for them. When you return to Concordat space, you will tell others what you witnessed here. Some will believe you. Most won't. That's acceptable. Understanding comes at its own pace. The darkness around them began to fade, normal space bleeding back into existence. The Eternal Vigilance's hull shifted again, returning to its original form, but now they could see it for what it truly was, not just a warship, but a testament to achievements they could barely comprehend. You are free to leave, Annihilates announced. Remember this lesson. The galaxy is larger, stranger, and more wonderful than you imagine. And humanity is watching, waiting for the day when you're ready to join them among the stars. As the Concordat fleet prepared to retreat, Vexter had one final question. When will humanity return? Annihilates' digital face smiled. They already have. You just haven't learned to recognize them yet. Legacy of Steel. The return journey to Concordat space was conducted in stunned silence. The fleet's weapons remained transformed into the haunting artistic displays, each one a permanent reminder of their encounter with human technology. But it wasn't just their weapons that had been transformed. Their understanding of the universe itself had been fundamentally altered. On the bridge of the dawn of enlightenment, Admiral Vexter sat in his command chair, watching the recording of their encounter for the 100th time. The ship's sensors had captured everything in perfect detail, though much of what they recorded defied analysis. Play it again, he ordered, focusing on the moment when the Eternal Vigilance had existed at multiple scales simultaneously. Kelleria, what's your current theory? The science officer had barely slept since their encounter, her multiple eyes rimmed with fatigue. It's like trying to explain quantum mechanics to a bacterial colony. Admiral, we're not just dealing with advanced technology. We're dealing with a civilization that transcended our understanding of physical law itself. The fleet's return to the nearest Concordat outpost caused an immediate sensation. News of their transformed weapons spread quickly, and soon the highest levels of Concordat leadership were involved. The artifacts were studied by the finest minds in the Alliance, but they remained impenetrable mysteries, perfect down to the atomic level, yet impossible to replicate or even fully understand. In the weeks that followed, something unprecedented began to happen throughout Concordat space. Reports started coming in from distant sectors. Other human artifacts were awakening. Ancient satellites, seemingly dead for centuries, began broadcasting complex mathematical sequences. Derelict stations that had been studied for decades suddenly revealed new levels of complexity, their systems activating in response to some unseen signal. The Galactic Archives, the greatest repository of knowledge in known space, experienced a system-wide transformation overnight. Archivists arrived to find their quantum computers operating at levels thought theoretically impossible, their databases filled with new information that seemed to have always been there, waiting to be discovered. Prometheus's voice echoed through every communication device in Concordat space. The awakening has begun. Humanity's children are ready for their next lesson. Across the galaxy, other civilizations reported similar phenomena. The hive mind of the Extratal Collective discovered that their neural network had been subtly guided by human design principles for centuries. The mechanoid hegemony found that their most advanced AI systems were pale imitations of human computing architecture that had been hidden in plain sight. In the Concordat High Council chamber, the greatest minds of a dozen species gathered to address this paradigm shift. The chamber's walls, once decorated with scenes of Concordat victories, now displayed the transformed weapons from Vextor's fleet, a reminder of their newfound humility. "We've been living in their shadow all along," Keldra addressed the council, her research having earned her a place among them. "What we thought was human primitive technology was merely what they allowed us to see. Their real achievements were hidden beneath layers of complexity we couldn't even perceive." A quantum theorist from the Silicon Mines stepped forward, its crystalline form catching the light. "We've analyzed the mathematical principles demonstrated by the eternal vigilance. They suggest that what we call reality is merely the surface layer of existence. The humans learned to manipulate the deeper layers, to treat the universe itself as a programming language." Reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy. Archaeological teams discovered that many of their most impressive technological achievements had been subtly guided by human design principles embedded in ancient artifacts. What they had thought were their own discoveries had been carefully orchestrated lessons, preparing them for a greater understanding. The eternal vigilance itself remained in its encounter location, now surrounded by a respectful distance of observation posts from various civilizations. None dared approach too closely, but all watched in fascination as the ship continued to shift and change, each transformation revealing new aspects of its impossible nature. Prometheus communicated sporadically with the observation posts, each conversation revealing new layers of understanding. The AA seemed to take genuine pleasure in teaching, though it never revealed more than its students were ready to comprehend. "Why now?" a young researcher had asked during one such conversation. "Why reveal all this at this moment in history?" The AA's response was characteristically cryptic. "Because you finally asked the right question. The galaxy's children are growing up. And like all good parents, humanity wants to ensure you're ready for what comes next." "And what comes next?" the researcher pressed. Prometheus's digital face showed that same enigmatic smile. "That depends entirely on what you do with what you've learned. Humanity didn't leave to abandon you. They left to give you room to grow. Now, they're offering you the chance to join them. The only question is, are you ready to learn what it truly means to reach for the stars?" Respect among stars. One standard galactic year after the encounter with the eternal vigilance, the face of civilization had changed dramatically. The transformed weapons from Admiral Vextor's fleet had been enshrined in a new museum on the Concordat capital world, a place now called the Museum of Human Legacy. But they were no longer just artifacts. They had become symbols of a revolution in thought. In the grand amphitheater of the museum, Kellera, now a chief xenoarchaeologist of the Concordat Science Directory, stood before representatives from 1,000 worlds. The room hummed with translation fields as species that once would have fought each other now sat together, united by a common purpose. "We thought we were studying humanity's remains," she began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. "Instead, we were being studied. Every artifact we discovered, every primitive human technology we dismissed, they were tests, measuring our readiness for what was to come." The holographic displays around her showed scenes from across the galaxy, ancient human outposts awakening, dormant technologies revealing their true nature, and most importantly, the changes in galactic society itself. The arrogance of the spacefaring races had been replaced by a sense of wonder and humility. Prometheus's face appeared above the gathering, now a familiar sight throughout civilized space. "You have made remarkable progress," the AI acknowledged. "In 1 year, you've begun to grasp principles that took humanity centuries to master. Your capacity for growth is impressive." But it wasn't just technological progress that had changed. The revelation of humanity's true nature had profound philosophical and social impacts. Species that once claimed supremacy now spoke of cooperation and mutual growth. The transformed weapons served as constant reminders that power without wisdom was mere brutality. The eternal vigilance itself had become a site of pilgrimage, though it maintained its defensive sphere. Scientists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders from across the galaxy would travel to its location, seeking understanding. The ship would appear differently to each visitor, showing them exactly what they needed to see to take their next step in understanding. But the greatest change, Kellera continued, wasn't in our technology or our knowledge. It was in our perspective. We learned that the universe is not a resource to be conquered, but a mystery to be explored. We learned that true advancement lies not in dominating others, but in lifting all species toward greater understanding. As if in response to her words, the air throughout the amphitheater began to shimmer. The gathered representatives gasped as points of light appeared around them, coalescing into humanoid forms that seemed to exist in more dimensions than their eyes could process. Prometheus's voice carried a note of pride. "You've taken the first steps. You've shown that you can learn, grow, and most importantly, change. Now, humanity would like to speak with you directly." The figures solidified enough to be recognizable as human, though they seemed to shift and flow in ways that defied conventional physics. One of them stepped forward, its voice resonating not through air, but through reality itself. "We never left," the figure said, its form rippling with colors beyond normal space. "We simply stepped aside, allowing you room to grow. Now, we offer you a choice." The human gestured, and the air filled with visions of possibilities. Futures where the gathered races could join humanity in their exploration of higher dimensions. Futures where they could learn to transcend the limitations of conventional existence. Futures where the very concepts of space and time became tools rather than constraints. "This is not a gift," the human continued. "It is an invitation to join us in understanding what the universe truly is and what it can become. But the choice must be yours." Admiral Vextor, who had been silent since his encounter with the eternal vigilance, finally spoke. "And if we choose not to join you?" The human's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "Then we will continue to watch, and wait, and teach. As we always have, the journey to understanding cannot be forced. It must be chosen." Kellera stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her awe. "But why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue to guide us from the shadows?" "Because you proved you were ready," Prometheus answered. "Not through your technological achievements, but through your response to them. When faced with power beyond your comprehension, you chose to learn rather than fear. When confronted with your own limitations, you chose humility over denial. These are the traits humanity was waiting for. The human figures began to fade, but their presence left an indelible mark on reality itself. As they disappeared, one last message echoed through the minds of all present. The stars are not your destination. They are your beginning. When you're ready to take the next step, we'll be waiting. Until then, look to the eternal vigilance. It will continue to teach, as it always has. For in the end, the greatest human legacy isn't our technology or our achievements. It's our endless desire to reach further, to understand more, and to share what we've learned with those who come after. As the gathering dispersed, the transformed weapons gleamed in their display cases, their impossible geometries a reminder that in the vast expanse of space and time, there would always be more to learn, more to discover, and more to become. The age of isolation was over. The age of understanding had begun. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as humanity had planned it.